Hi everybody, I'm Stefan for cgtutspost.com, and in today's tutorial we are going to create a recreation of the Max Payne logo animation from the original film title sequence. So as you can see, I've already imported the logo into Cinema 4D, and right now I'm going to start extruding the text. I'm just going to hold down Alt and click to extrude NURBS, so I can extrude my text, and do the same for the second piece of text here. So let's rename the extrude NURBS in order to better know which one is which, and let's increase this to 200 because we want some depth of the text. And let's come to the caps tab and change this to fillet cap as well as this one, and reduce the radius to 3, and also make sure you click constrain, because otherwise this radius expands and you can see what's going on. So we need to hit constrain in order to avoid that, and also we need to do that for the second text layer. And as you can see, we are ready. Also, let's come to the render settings and change this to 1280 by 720, and just set the anti-aliasing to best. And now we need to set up a camera, so come here and set a camera, and we need to animate the text, but first let's center the camera position, and let's see if we set the focal length to 100. We need to zoom out our camera, so let's zoom it out like so, for example minus 8000, and set a keyframe at the beginning and make the sequence 100 frames long, and come to the end and set this to just a slight little zoom, so the title is not a static one. And we need to animate the logo, so let's select the logo new object, and let's come to the beginning of the timeline and set a keyframe about X and Z position. And let's see if we set this to negative 8000 and set a keyframe, and if we change this to 150 probably and set a keyframe, the idea is that the camera passes through the gap between these letters here, so we need to change it a bit, probably like so, and increase this one as well. And let's come to frame 5 and probably set a keyframe for a rotation. and we need that to be rotated at 90 degrees. And by the way, I'm holding Control when hitting the small circle here to put a keyframe. And come to frame 17 or 20 and set this to 0, as well as this one to 0, and this one to 0. So we have kind of this type of animation. Probably we need to tweak this a bit and move the text like -100, so it moves like so. And this is our animation. And probably we can come to the camera and increase that to -7000, for example. Oops, negative. And to have slightly bigger movement. And now we need to animate the title Payne like so to eject the gun shell. So let's come to frame 54 and come to the coordinates for the extrude NURBS object, and we are going to animate the X position only. So set a keyframe for the X position, move 2 frames forward, and slide it like so, and set a keyframe, move 2 frames forward, move it just a bit, set a keyframe, and then select the first keyframe and just copy it and paste it right here. So we have this type of animation, as you can see. And basically we are ready with the animation, and we need to set up our textures and whitening right now. So let's create a new material and let's call it title material, and to the texture tab, right here into the texture tab, just select the load image and just hold this image right here. And by the way, this is a texture that I shot with my camera, so it will be included in the project files as well. And click open to open it, and here appears a dialog box that asks you if you want to the image to be in the document search path, and do you want to make a copy at the document location? No, I don't want. So click no, and we need to change the color first. So something probably a bit darker red color, like so, and click OK. And then come to the texture and come to the filter tab and add a filter, and set the mixed strength to 10 because we want the color to blend with the texture. And come to the filter and set the brightness to -15 because we want to be a bit darker. Set the contrast to 35 to get even more contrast, and basically that's it. So let's come to the reflection tab and click the reflection, set the reflection amount to 1, and set the texture to Fresnel and set the mix strength to 35%, so we have a bit of reflection going on the text. And the next thing that we're going to do is to come to the bump and click to activate the bump channel, and let's load a new image. And basically this is the same texture. I just opened it in Photoshop and make it black and white and increase the contrast. So let's click open and let's set the strength to 600 to get more bump. And finally let's come to the Specular Channel, and basically we are going to use the default settings and just increase the height to 40%, and basically that's it. Let's set the material to the text, so let's put it right here and right here, and change the projection type to cubic for both of the layers. And if we add a white, we can move it around and see how our type looks like. And probably we need to increase the bump like so. And let's start putting our whites right here. So the first white we are going to create is a Omni White, and we are going to rename this to Specular, and set this white right here, and come to the General tab and turn off all the channels except the Specular channel. Increase the intensity to 125 and don't choose to have shadows, so this white will not cast shadows, and it's positioned right here on top of the text. And if we turn this on, as you can see, we have only the specular, and if we click to diffuse, we get some colors as well. So far so good. So let's create another white and let's rename it to main, and set the position of the white to something like so, and again a bit in front of the text as well, so it illuminates the text. And other than that, we are going to keep everything else as default here. Probably reduce the intensity just a bit, and let's see. This is fine. And let's create another white, which is going to be area white, and just let's move this behind the camera and increase the size of this white, and come to the General tab and set the intensity to 25% and leave the rest as default. And let's create another white, and let's call this one Specular 2, and we need to position it something like so. Come to the General tab and turn off everything except the specular and set the intensity to 70% and choose a shadow maps soft shadows for this one. So as you can see, this is how our type looks like. Probably if we turn off the specular, the type will going to look terrible, but let's play with the settings a bit. Probably reduce the intensity of the main white even more and play with the color as well. It's not saturated enough. Probably we can increase it right here. And let's make a short preview to see how it's going to look like this animation. And as you can see, here is the progress of the preview going on. And we are going to see it right now. It's in terrible quality. But I think this look good, except the quality of the render. So this is our title and everything is good. You can increase the anti-aliasing settings for better results, but I think this is good enough. And for the save, we need to choose a PNG sequence with alpha channel. Select where to export this and just export it. But since I already exported the sequence, I'm going to jump into After Effects and import the existing sequence and start compositing the final piece. So let's jump inside After Effects. Here we are in After Effects with the title imported, as you can see. So we can start compositing it. The first thing that I'd like to do is to put this element in the composition and scale it up to fit the size of our project. And by the way, I'm using elements from the Action Essentials tool from videocopilot.net, and basically I want this element to start right here. And another thing I'd like to do is to add a motion blur to our title. So you can see the motion blur here. It's not the best quality of motion blur, but this is the Real Smart Motion Blur plugin for After Effects, and it's helpful for such cases. And right now we need to duplicate this one and apply a fast blur and just blur it out like 80%. Set the blending mode to add, and also we are going to select our text, come to color correction and choose levels adjustment, and move one frame backwards, set a keyframe for the histogram, move forward and increase the input white, in this case decrease it to make the title brighter, and move a few frames forward and reset it to default, probably a bit brighter. So we got effect like the text is lit up by this explosion. And we are going to make the last keyframe easy ease. Also we are going to color correct our text. Come to effect, color correction, tint, and just tint it slightly, probably 10%, and also add a curves adjustment and just increase the contrast a bit. As well. And the next element that we are going to drop down is this dusted cam element, which is dust wave, and we are going to put it right here to start at this point. And as you can see, probably it needs to start a bit earlier, like so, and probably change the blending mode to screen and reduce the opacity to 15% or so. We need this to be very subtle, but to have this effect, and probably fade it in, set the opacity to 0 and move a few frames forward and set this to 20, probably a bit more, just to see the element. And right here we are going to use this element, which is a gun shell, and we are going to animate it. So just drop it at first. Let's scale it down to the proper size. Probably 50% is a good enough size, or 45. And let's see in which position we are going to use this. Probably in this position here. So let's trim this, and let's see right here if it appear at this place. Like so, and move one frame forward, and with the layer selected for the gun shell, just hit Ctrl Shift D to split the layer. So let's come to edit and just choose split layer and set this on top of the title. And as you can see, it just rotates. So we are going to hit P for the position and just animate it to the side, and after that grab the handles and just you can set the path of the element. So we can set the motion blur for this, and probably set the shutter angle to 180 or even more. Let's set this to 360 probably we can just select the gun shell, duplicate it, remove the motion blur temporary, and apply a levels adjustment and crush it like a lot, just to see the brightest parts of the gun shell, and come to color correction tint to tint it, and now come to blur and sharpen and apply a fast blur like 25 pixels, and let's change this to add, and probably duplicate this layer, and this way it's going to illuminate more dramatically the highlights of the gun shell. And another element you can add is kind of sparks coming out of the text and some particles flying around. So let's create a new adjustment layer, and let's call this one CC for color correction, and let's overall tint this and increase the contrast of the scene as well. And finally let's add a add grain effect, and set this to final output, and set the intensity to 0.3 and the size to 0.2. Also let's create a new solid, and let's make a background for this, and probably we can create another solid in kind of a warmer color, and draw a shape behind the text, and just feather this like a lot, like 400 pixels, and just put it behind everything. So we have kind of a detail a bit there, not just a flat background. And also I'd like to add some nice glow here on the title, so I'm going to duplicate the title, and let's sew this layer, and turn off all the effects. I want the glow to be until this frame here. So let's add a stylized glow effect. Move backwards a bit, and let's select the levels adjustment, remove the keyframes, and let's leave only the brightest parts of the title and make them a bit brighter. And let's add the glow, reduce the threshold, increase the radius and the intensity, and probably increase the radius even more, and just play with the settings, and just fade out this layer. So set the opacity to 0 and move a few frames, and just set this to screen to blend with the rest of the text. as you can see, we have this nice blink right here, which is a very dramatic effect. And basically this is the tutorial. Let's make a preview to see how it look like. I think that the gun shell needs to move faster, so let's move 10 frames and let's set this to a new composition and let's call it final. And let's see right here, we need to hit P for the position, set a keyframe and move 10 or 15 frames forward and set a keyframe and open the Wigware. Select these two keyframes and let's set the frequency to 3 and the magnitude to 25 and hit apply. But as we can see, this doesn't work, so let's set the frequency to 0.5 and let's hit apply. I mean, my mistake. Let's set the frequency to 10 and let's turn on the motion blur, and now let's scale this one up a bit and let's make a preview. And this is a very easy way to simulate like a camera shake effect, and it takes some time to play around and find the best settings, but overall this is the idea. And I don't like how this looks like, so let's set this to 40 and this to 15 and hit apply again and just move this keyframe here and scale this like so. Make another preview and turn the motion blur, which is very important for this type of shake effects. And this is a very strong camera shake, so let's make this 20 or like 8 and let's test again how it's going to look like. And we need to scale the layer up and let's set this to 25 and this to 12 and scale the layer and just select the two keyframes and hit apply and make a preview. And basically that's the idea. So hope this tutorial was interesting and useful for you. Once again, I'm Stefan for cgtutsplus.com and we'll see you next time.